What if one of George Washington's biggest ideas didn't hold up? George Washington is one of the biggest names in American history, a driving force in uniting the colonies, especially bringing Virginia and the southern colonies into the fight. His most iconic precedent may be the peaceful transfer of power, rejecting the idea of another monarchy and setting the tone for what America would become. Today, Washington's words get clipped, screenshotted, and passed around. Warnings about foreign conflicts and national debt stripped of context to push one argument or another. In his farewell address, Washington warned against excessive credit and accumulating national debt. But this widely quoted line desperately needs context. The same Washington also backed Alexander Hamilton's financial system, including a national bank and having the federal government take on the debts of the original 13 colonies. However, it quickly became clear that without debt or raising taxes, the government couldn't pay the army. They couldn't put down rebellions or build infrastructure the country needed to survive. While the idea of financial enslavement is rapidly gaining attention, it's nothing new. It's been happening for thousands of years. Throughout history, kings and queens took on massive debt to fight wars and feed their people. They were wealthy in assets, but often short on cash. Borrowing wasn't a choice, it was a necessity. While Washington was right about the dangers of debt, it was already an unavoidable reality, especially when it came to running a country. And that's the part that often gets left out. In his farewell address, Washington also urged the country to stay out of European conflicts and avoid long-term alliances. In simple terms, mind our own business. We were too weak to compete as a nation or an army. And to be fair, staying out made sense. The United States was weak, divided, and in no position to take on a global power like Britain. But neutrality came at a cost. The French, who had helped America win its independence, felt betrayed. Our revolution helped push France deep into debt, and when they called on us, we stayed out. They had to pay for that revolution, and when they couldn't, it fueled unrest and rebellion at home. By 1796, Europe had been in nearly constant conflict throughout the 17th century, the 18th century, and would continue well into the 19th century. The idea that those wars wouldn't reach the Americas was already unrealistic. We would soon find out just how difficult that was. America wanted to stay neutral during the French Revolutionary Wars, hoping to improve relations with the British and avoid another fight. But that neutrality didn't protect us. Under Thomas Jefferson, tensions escalated into the quasi-war with France. In 1798, the world was a much larger place. Crossing the Atlantic could take months. And yet, despite that distance, the war still reached our doorstep. A naval conflict we didn't want brought to us anyway. In a perfect world, neutrality sounds great, but the world isn't perfect. Throughout history, resource-rich lands have been fought over and torn apart, changing hands again and again. The Americas were no exception. France, Spain, and Britain had no intention of leaving them alone. Lastly, his views on alliances may have made sense for his time, but history shows they don't hold up. Some of the greatest threats in history were only stopped through alliances. Even enemies have united when it mattered. Germanic tribes, often rivals, came together to challenge Rome. Napoleon finally defeated by the Seventh Coalition. Hitler falling to the Allies who would go on to form NATO. Alliances aren't a weakness, they're often the only way nations survive. George Washington is, and likely always will be, one of the most influential figures in American history. But that doesn't make him perfect, and it doesn't mean he was always right. Many of his beliefs would later prove impractical at best. But he may have gotten one thing exactly right, when he warned that political parties could and would divide this country. That warning has never really gone away. For more stories from history, please like, follow, and subscribe.